Okay, so Assalamualaikum and good morning. So today we're going to take a look at the new chapter, which is chapter 8. This chapter is about array. Array is very important, okay, because you're going to use array a lot after this, okay? Okay, so array is basically like this. You have what we call this one, a compartment. You have storage here, and then inside this storage you can put a lot of data here. Okay, so array is something like compartments, okay, or storage. Okay, at the end of this chapter you're going to understand the concept of array and multi-dimensional array, and you will implement the concept of array in your program, implement the concept of array in your function, and implement the concept of array in matrices operation. Okay. However, for matrices operation, I will not go detail about that. Okay. Okay. Since array is very important, so I put here the more tutorial that you can refer about this array. Okay. Okay. For the introduction, array is actually a list. Okay, last time, if you still remember, I explained about a list. Okay, array is a list of more than one variable having the same name, okay, and data type. Okay, so you have the same name and you have the same data type. Okay, in your variable. Okay. And then array will hold more than one value at a time. Okay. Before this, awak buat variable satu value saja. But now you can have many value at the same time for the same variable. Okay. For the same name of your variable. The value inside the array element can be accessed by referring the index number in a row. Okay. And then, of course, index number is started at 0. Okay. Okay. We have example here. We have variable name age. Okay. Age, and then here you have a list of age. You have 23, you have 32, you have 18, you have 20, and you have 35. Okay. So this is list of array. Okay. So here you have only one name, which is age, and then the data type is integer. Okay. However, you can have many values. Okay, you can have more than one value here. Okay. Before this, you only have like this: age equal to, let's say, 19. Okay, that's it. Okay. However, when you have array, you can have many value in your variable. Okay. So basically in your compiler or in your memory, in your computer memory, it is like this. You have one variable, the variable name is age, and this age is in a list variable, in a list array. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 apa tu kita panggil 5 location lah. Okay. And then record. Hazlami saya record sebab saya dah tak boleh record guna apa? Saya tak boleh record guna Google Meet. So saya record guna OBS. Bila saya record guna OBS, awak tak nampak. Saya record, saya seorang je nampak. Okay? Hazlami? Okay? Okay. So this age has many values inside here. Okay? So based on this variable, based on this value, when we put in our memory, it will be like this. Age 0 store 23, age 1 store 32, age 2 store 18, age 3 store 20, age 4 store 35. Okay, so this value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is index. Okay, this one is index, your variable index. So whenever you want to refer to this value, let's say you want to refer to value 32. So how you going to refer is like this, based on this one. Okay, you're going to refer as age and the index is 1 so that you can get the value 32. Okay, if you refer to age index 2, you will get value 18. Okay, macam itulah array. Okay, class, understand so far?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, yang lain-lain? Okay,
Okay, Doktor.
okay, okay. We move to the next one. Okay. Okay, so we have that normal variable before this. Sebelum ni, awak buat macam ni kan. In your normal variable, you have metric ID 1, you store AA1980809. Metric ID 2, KA blah blah blah. Metric ID 3, KA20 blah blah blah. Okay, so here, if you notice here, the data type of this variable is string. Okay, so here you have 1, 2, and 3 variables, okay, that store different values. Okay, however, if you use array variable, you can have only one variable. You can have only one variable, which is metric ID, and you can store more than one value at the same time. Okay, so awak dah jimat ruang memory. Okay, so you can have one variable, and inside your variable here is array variable, and then you can store many values at the same time. Okay, so you can have this one AA for a metric ID, the first metric ID. The second metric ID, you can have this metric, and the third one, you can have this one. Okay, so instead of you need to have many variable, you can have only one variable. Okay, as long as it is in the same data type. Okay, so kalau misal katalah student ada sampai contohnya awak punya course, course awak ada 50 student. Kalau awak guna normal variable, you need to have metric ID 1, 2, 3 sampai 50 kan. So benda tu tedious. Okay, that dia juga memakan banyak memory. Okay, so instead of we having the normal variable, okay, so we can have one array variable, and we can store many value at the same time. Okay. Okay. Next. Okay. So basically, if you have this kind of array variable, inside your memory, it is like this. Or inside your compiler, dia akan jadi macam ni lah. You have one variable, and then you have many index here, and then you can store your metric ID here. Okay. So for this one, you can store here, here, and here. So if you want to refer apa tu, for each metric ID, you can refer based on the index. Metric ID index 0 will go to here. Matrix ID index 1 will go to this metric. Metric ID index 2 will go to this metric. Okay. So this is how array works. Okay. Okay. The value inside the array element can be accessed by referring to the index number as I mentioned before, and it must be start with 0. Okay. Dia tak boleh start from 1. Dia mesti from 0. Okay. Okay. Here lagi contoh. If in your in normal variable, you have like this. Metric ID 1, metric ID 2, metric ID 3, and then you have the respective metric ID value here. So if you want to print your value inside this metric ID, you will print like this. Metric 1, and then you will print the value inside metric ID 1. Metric 2, you will print metric ID 2. Metric 3, you will print metric ID 3. Okay. So your output will be like this. Okay. Metric 1 will print AA19809. Metric 2 KA. Metric 3 KA. Okay. However, when you use array variable, you have this type of array. Okay. And then how you going to print it is just print the based on the list here. Okay. Sorry, based on the index. Okay, you can print like this: matrix ID 0, matrix ID 1, matrix ID 2. So it is like this. Okay. Okay, class. If we debug, sekejap ya. Okay, yang ini. Saya tutup dulu yang ini, yang lain. Okay. So we have here matrix ID. Okay. So you can see here, your matrix ID consists of list of array 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay. And then when you want to print it, you just print the matrix ID. Okay. You can print like this, the whole list like this, or if you want to print one by one, you must refer to the index. Okay. So if you want to print matrix 1, you can refer to index 0. Okay. Which is AA19. If you want to print matrix 2, you can refer to matrix index 1. KA19. If you want to print the last matrix ID, you can refer to the respective index, okay, which is index 2. Okay. Okay. So this is how we can access the value inside our array variable. Okay. Okay, kelas. Tak ada apalah, senang je ni. Okay. Okay. However, okay, what if your value array is up to 100? You have from index 0 until index 99, like this. Takkanlah awak nak print macam ni. Kan? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sampai 99. Okay. So, benda tu sangat susah lah. Okay. So, kita ada cara mudah. Okay. So, instead of you print out based on one by one index like that, you can access the array by having input or output of the array by using repetitive statement. You can use for looping. Okay. Okay, how to use that for looping is like this. Instead of we use like this, tak nak buat macam ni. Sebab kalau your data hanya 3, tak apalah. But let's say your data sampai ada ribu-ribu, takkan nak buat macam ni kan? So, kita ada cara lain. We can use repetitive statement, which is we can use for loop. Okay. How to use it? Like this. For index, okay. For index here is the the start access of the array lah from index 0. For index, so index adalah variable. Okay. For index in range, which range? The range is based on length of matrix ID. Okay. So once we get the length of this matrix ID, we can do the looping process. And then we just print matrix. This one just we want just to display. Currently we are in which array. Okay. And then we print matrix ID. We put inside here index. Okay. So index here we refer to which index here. Okay. Okay. If you still remember, this is how we do the looping for last time, right? Okay, so here we use length because length function to get the length of matrix ID. Okay, in this case, our length is 3. Okay, so let's debug. Let's see this one. Okay, I don't want to do this one. So, we proceed with this one. Okay, so if we debug, okay, so now in our matrix ID, we have array list, okay, list of array. Okay, when we go to the for looping, range, length, metric ID. So now, when we use length, if we go to the length metric ID, it will get the length of our metric ID, which is 3. Okay, 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's why here range is 3. Okay, so index starting from 0. Okay, index is 0. So you can see here matrix index 0 plus 1 will be 1. Metric index 0 AA19809. So you can have metric 1 AA19809 here. Okay, this one. Okay, next we proceed with the next index, which is index 1. Index 1 is still in the range 3. Okay, matrix index 1 plus 1, which is 2. Metric index 1 refer to KA19056. So it print here matrix 2 KA19056. Okay. Okay, now we move to the next index, which is index 2. Index 2 is still in the range 3. Okay. Metric index 2 plus 1, which is 3. Metric ID index 2 refer to KA2 20397. And then kita pun print kat sini. Okay, done, settle. Okay, kita dah reach the range limit, which is 3. So kita dah loop sebanyak 3 kali. Okay, okay class, understand?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, good. So this is how basically this is how we will assess our array. Okay, sama ada we want to input or we want to retrieve the output from the array. We can use for looping here. Okay. Okay. Next. Okay. User. Okay. Basically, when we have array, we will ask user to enter the value or input to the array list. Kalau dalam coding ni, sekarang ni yang saya tunjuk ni, this is initial, kita yang initialize kan. Tapi normally user, we will ask user to enter this input. Okay, kita tak buatlah macam ni nanti. Okay, so how to ask user to enter the input to the array list? There are few steps. The first one, define length of the list. Okay, predefine or ask user to define. You can ask user to define it. Okay, let's say you can ask user to define number of student and then put in the variable num stud. Okay, and then the second one, you create an array list with the length size based on step number 1. Okay, so how to create the array list is like this. You can have one variable name. Let's say your variable name is metric ID equal to, and then you have this bracket. Okay, and then here you must create an array list with the length size based on this one, based on here. So 0 for index in range num student. Okay, 0 is the first index. Okay, so not that 0 is the first index. So that's why when we create an array list, we must put 0 here. 0 for index. Index is our variable. You can put any name here. Okay, but here I just put index. Okay, 0 for index in range. Which range? That range based on the value here, the defined length here. So I put here the value that I will define our length of the list is in the num student, num stud. Okay, so this is how we create an array list. Okay, so now in our coding we already have one array list, which is metric ID, and that metric ID have a length size which is based on num student. Okay, num stud. After that, after you create that array list, you can use for looping statement to add value into the element of the array list. Okay, elements means that this one. This one lah. This one element. Okay, this is element. Okay. Okay. This is example. You have here, you ask user number of student, how many number of student, and then you store inside the num student, num stud variable. And then after that, you create an array list name matrix ID, and you define the size based on num stud. Okay, so you have matrix ID equal to bracket 0 for index in range num student. Okay, and then here you can enter the element of the array using for loop. Okay, for index in range which is num student, and then you can have print matrix index 1, index 2, index 3, etc. Okay, how to allow user to enter the input into the array is like this. Matrix, which is your variable, index, which index that you refer, and then you just use the input function here. Okay, okay, if you use the normal variable, contohnya kalau sebelum ni you do like this, matrix ID equal to input here. Okay, so this is normal. This is normal variable. But if you use array variable, you must add this one, index. Add index here. Okay, so now we know that in which element of array that you want to input the data. Okay, okay, and then this one is you just want to print out. Okay, you want to print out, again you need to use the for looping. For index in range num student, you will print the matrix based on the index. Okay, okay, so let's debug. Ini mana? Num student. Okay, this one. Okay, so sekarang ni, okay, now our matrix ID, we didn't have any value inside our matrix ID. Okay, so now we want ask user to enter it. Okay, okay, so if you debug here, okay, how many number of students? Let's say I said 2. So means that, okay, when we have num student is 2, okay, now I will create my array list to define the length of the array size. Okay, so 0 for index in range num students. So now means that my matrix ID has two element. Okay, you can see here there is 2 element. Okay, 0 0. In Python compiler will automatically put the value 0 0 after you create that array list. Okay, kalau perasan kat sini kan, ini value dia 0, this one pun 0. Okay, sebab dalam Python compiler will automatically put 0. Okay class, understand so far?
Boleh, Doktor.
Okay, yang lain-lain okay?
Okey, Doktor.
Okay, so now bila kita dah ada our matrix ID, kita dah ada dia punya length adalah 2, okay, 1 and 2. So now we can ask user to enter the value into our array. Okay, so if you go one by one for index in range 2, okay, now means that our looping will be looped 2 times. Okay, will be looped 2 times. Okay, okay, for index 0, this one is just nothing actually. Index plus 1 is just to display to the user. Okay, we just want to guide user. Currently, we are in which matrix? Okay. So index 0 plus 1. So now means that we will guide user. We will ask user to enter matrix number 1, the first matrix. So that's why we put index plus 1 there. Okay. Okay, now we will ask user to enter the input here. Input. So we enter here KA 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So you can see here in matrix ID index 0 will be stored here. Okay. Nampak tak? Nampak tak? Matrix ID tadi 0. But now, when user enter KA 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, dia dah automatically masuk ke matrix ID index 0. KA 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Okay, kelas? Nampak?
Nampak.
Okay. So now, our looping, we loop the second time, which is index 1. Okay, again, the same thing we do. Matrix 2. Okay, so now we will allow user to enter the input for the matrix number 2. Okay, let's say I put here AA 167. Okay. Okay, so now when we have this one, okay, so sekarang dia dah masuk lah dalam matrix ID index 1. AA 16765. Okay. Boleh kelas? Ini cara how we ask user to enter the value inside our array. Okay. Okay. So now we already have the value inside our matrix ID array. What we're going to do now is we want to print out it. Okay. So we just use again the for looping for index in range 2. So we will print the matrix 1, which is, we will refer based on matrix ID index 0, KA 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Okay. We move to the next looping, the second index, which is index 1. Okay. We will refer to matrix ID index 1, which is AA 16765. Okay. Done. Okay, so this is how we do the input and we retrieve the output from array. Boleh kelas? Faham? Faham?
Boleh lah.
Boleh Senang je. Okay? Okay. Boleh yang orang lain? Hakim? Faham tak?
Faham.
Faham Dia bila main dengan array ni kita kena banyak berimajinasi sikit. Okay? Harap yang lain faham Hazlami faham? Hazlami, Nurin apa nama? Nurin Nurizan.
Boleh Atam.
Boleh semangat, bagus. Okay. We move to the next slide. Okay, example 1. Enter ID number and quiz 1. Okay. Okay, now user here we want to allow user to enter student ID and quiz mark. Okay. So we have noun student. We ask user how many number of students. Okay, and then we put into the noun student here. And then after that we create our array list. We have the variable name matrix ID 0 for index in range noun student. Okay, now we have another variable. The name is quiz. And then we want to create this quiz array list as well. Quiz equal to bracket 0 for index in range num student as well. Okay. Okay, so now basically we want to do like this. Okay, we want to have match ID. Let's say you have two student, student 1, student 2, and then you're going to put the quiz mark for student 1 and also for student 2. So that's why we have two array here, match ID and also quiz. Okay, so now we want to ask user to enter the value for match ID and also value for the quiz. Okay, we want to do this part. Okay, this part. Okay, so we use the for looping for index in range num student. We going to ask user to enter. Yang ni yang sama macam tadi, except that kita ada yang ni. Quiz, refer to quiz. Index, refer to which index in the quiz. And then we will ask user to enter the input by having float. Okay, so we have float input here. So when user enter, let's say user enter KA for metric 1, and then the quiz mark for KA19 is 15.5. Okay, so when we use this for looping, we can enter, we can repeat that enter process based on the number of student here. Okay, and then here we want to print out the output. Okay, so we can have this one. Okay, okay, so the output will be like this. Okay, let us debug. Okay, so now we have this one. Yang ni saya tutup dulu. Yang ni the next step nanti. Okay, if we debug, the same thing actually happen. Okay, so let's say I put here 2. So I'm going to have 2 number of student, and also based on that 2 number of student, we're going to enter 2 matrix ID and also 2 quiz mark. Okay. So again here, the same thing as previous example. So we have the matrix ID here. We have the matrix ID array. The list is, the size list is 2. Okay. The initial value is 0, 0. Next, we're going to have quiz. Quiz for index in range 2 as well. So we have we have variable name array, which is array quiz, and then we also have 2 size. Okay, the size of quiz is 2 as well, and then the initial value is 0, 0. Okay, so now we want to ask user to enter the value for index in range 2. Means that our looping will be looped 2 times. Okay. Okay, so we have here matrix 1. User will enter, let's say enter KA20. Okay. And then we will ask user to enter quiz. Okay, you can see now when I enter KA20987, dia dah masuk lah dalam ni for index 0. Okay. Okay, for quiz index 0. Okay, let's say I put here 15.5. So, awak nampak kat sini, dia dah masuk ke quiz index 0, 15.5. Okay. Now, we move to the next index, which is index 1. Okay, so we will do for the matrix number 2. So, I put 19. Okay. So, you can see here, now we already have AA19 blah 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 into our matrix ID index 1. Okay. So now we're going to enter the quiz for this student AA. Let's say I put here 17.5. Okay. So now we have 17.5 inside our quiz index 1. Okay. Done with the input. Now we want to print this value. Okay, we want to print this value. by using the for statement. Okay, for range 2, instead our looping will be loop 2 times. Okay, so matrix 1, matrix ID, index 0 refer to KA. Okay, so it will print KA here. The quiz mark for KA is quiz index 0 as well, 15.5. So we have here 15.5. Move to the next index, which is index 1. Okay, so we have matrix ID. Index 1 refer to AA. Okay, so that's why kita dah dapat print lah kat sini. Okay, now we want to print quiz for AA. Quiz for AA also refer to index 1, which is 17.5. Okay, done. Okay, okay class, understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Doktor,
Ya. Yeah.
sorry ya. Doktor, I nak tanya. Okay, kad yang tempat for index in range number student, right?
Yang mana ni? Okay, yang
Dua-dua. Tengah tu. Okay, kat quiz mark tu kenapa kita tak bubuk index plus 1?
Macam saya cakap tadi, index plus 1 is actually just for display. Dia tak ada apa-apa meaning pun. Kita just nak bagi tahu dekat user. Sekarang kita berada di matrix 1. Sebab user, orang yang tak buat coding, dia tak tahu index tu bermula dengan kosong. Yang dia tahu, dia nak masukkan data untuk student yang pertama, untuk student yang kedua. So that's why kita just letak je ni. Kalau tak nak letak pun tak apa yang ni. Dia tak ada maksud apa-apa. We just want to show to the user. Sekarang kita berada di matrix 1. Sekarang kita berada di matrix 2. Faham?
It's like, okay, faham.
Okay? Faham
Doktor, apa tu float? Float input. Dia macam mana?
Float kan data type. Kan data type. Sebab sekarang kita nak masukkan value 15.5. So we use lah float. Sebab normally markah memang dalam float. Okay? Floating point. Okay?
Okay, doktor. Thank you, doktor.
Okay. So, sekarang we move to the next one. Okay, now tadi saya dah tunjuk how to input and how to do the input to the array and how to retrieve the output from the array. So sekarang kita nak process the array value pula. Okay. So we want to process our array value. Let's say we want to determine average quiz mark. Okay. Contohnya lah dalam kelas tu kita ada ramai student. So contohnya user ni adalah cikgu. Okay. For example, in this coding, the user is teacher. So teacher akan masukkan markah quiz yang banyak. And then teacher nak tengok performance quiz dalam kelas dia. So that teacher need to determine the average mark for the quiz tu lah. Okay. So sekarang kita nak determine average mark for that quiz. Okay. So I just add here total mark, one variable total mark because saya perlu totalkan mark quiz mark tu. So I put initialize value 0. Okay. And then here inside my looping, okay, tengok kat sini dia adalah inside looping. Saya ada total mark here. Total mark equal to total mark plus quiz index. Okay. Apa yang berlaku adalah like this. I have total mark. Oh, kejap. Saya kena print screen yang ni sebenarnya. Okey, saya terangkan dulu yang ni, nanti saya lukis dia punya ni penerangan. Okey. So, inside my for looping, bila saya dah masukkan bila user dah masukkan input, Okay, I will total the mark. Okay, so how to total the mark? I have this formula. Total mark equal to total mark plus quiz index. So means that I will total the quiz mark here. I will total the quiz mark here into here. Okay, so and then after that, outside the for looping, I'm going to calculate the average. The average equal to total mark over num student. Okay, and then here I'm going to print the average mark here. Okay, so if we debug, so I have this one. Okay, let's say I clear this one. Okay, mula-mula saya run dulu ya. Let's say number of student is 2, metric ID. Okay, quiz is 15.6, AA. Okay, quiz mark is, let's say I put 17.5. So now I have my average quiz mark is 16.55. Okay, so how it works is like this. Kita, apa yang berlaku dia adalah macam ni. Okay, this is salah. Sekejap saya angkat telefon sekejap. Hello Yanti. Salah. Ada kelas. Ada kelas. Okay. Okay, bye. Okay. Okay, so now we have this one. Cut this one. Okay. So basically in your memory or in your memory lah, dalam memory coding awak tu kan, compiler tu dia macam ni. So you have total mark. Okay, so you have total mark here. Okay. And then for this one, quiz ni kan dia macam ni lah dalam your susahnya saya nak tulis benda ni, benda ni. Okay. So quiz ni dia macam ni lah kan. Okay. Let's say we have 2, quiz 0, and then here is quiz 1. Pakai mouse ni, ya Allah, kejang tangan saya. Okay. Okay, kelas. So tadi, let's say tadi saya masukkan berapa tadi value? 15.6, 17.5. So saya masukkan tadi value 15.6, 17.5. Okay. Okay. So, firstly tadi total mark yang ini kan. Total mark is 0. Okay. Initial value for total mark is 0. So, kita ada kat sini 0. Okay. So, bila dia sampai di sini, total mark equal to total mark plus quiz. Kalau tadi index 0, so here is index 0. What is the value for quiz class? Bila index 0? Class, what is the value?
15.6.
Berapa? 15.6. Okay. So here our value is for quiz is 15.6. What is our value for total mark? Now total mark is 0. Total mark here, what is the value? Cepat kelas. What is the value for total mark? Currently, when index is 0 in this coding, what is the total mark?
1 ke?
0. Mana ada satu-satu, tak ada pun, tak buat apa-apa pun lagi. 0. Kan, betul tak kelas? Currently our value for total mark is 0. Betul tak?
Betul.
Ha. So 0 plus 15.6 jadi berapa?
15.6.
So sekarang kita punya value adalah 15.6. Okay. So sekarang dia dah jadi 15.6. In our memory juga, dia jadi 15.6. Okay? Faham? Okay, now bila kita dah siap index 0, dia move to the index 1. Okay, index 1, so dekat sini dah jadi index 1. Okay, so berapa value for quiz index 1 kelas? Berapa value?
17.5.
17.5. Ha ni. Okay, so sekarang 17.5. Okay, what is the current value for total mark?
15.6.
15.6. Okay. So, kita pun tambahlah. 15.6 plus 17.5. Berapa?
33.1.
Berapa?
33.1.
33.1. Okay. So, dalam compiler kita pun total mark dah jadi 33.1. Okay. Kemudian, keluar daripada looping. Okay, we go outside the looping. Our loop done. Okay, so we go to here. Average equal to total mark over 6 student. So our current total mark is 33.1 over 2. So that's why we get average is 16.55. Okay. So average kita dapat 16.55. Okay. So kita pun print kat sini. Okay. So that's how we process our value in array. We have to refer one by one to the index. Okay. Kat sini ni. Okay kelas. Faham? Jom kita debug. Kalau tak debug, tak faham. Jom. Let's debug. How many number of students? Let's say 2. So we have the total quiz and total mark as well. So you can see here total mark is 0. Okay, now we will do this one. Metric ID. Okay, the quiz mark, let's say 15.6. Okay, so you can see here current total mark is 0. 0 plus quiz index 0. Quiz index 0 is 15.6. So we have 0 plus 15.6 is 15.6. So that's why our current total mark will be 15.6. Now we move to the next looping, which is index 1. Okay, so I put here. Okay. And then the quiz mark is, let's say, 17.5. Okay, so now quiz 1, we have 17.5. Okay. Total mark. Our current total mark is 15.6 plus with quiz index 1, which is 17.5. So we will get total mark 33.1. Okay, so now we have total mark 33.1. Okay, and then our loop has stopped because we already reached the second loop. Okay, so now we do the average. Average equal to total mark, which is 33.1 over 2. So we will get 16.55. Okay, now we will print this one. Yang ni sama macam sebelum ni. So we will print our average here. Okay? Okay, class? Faham?
Faham Doktor.
Okay, good. Okay. So I want you to do this exercise. I want you to develop an array list to enter student name and student age for a certain number of students. Okay. And then the second exercise, I want you to store the value in array list. Okay. If you still remember, we have previously we have this exercise, right? To enter total, you will ask user number of total value to be calculated. Okay. And then I want you to store this value inside array. Okay. Okay. And then sekejap ya. Yeah. Okay. I want you to do this exercise. You need to think how to do this coding based on this output. Output dia saya nak macam ni. You will ask user to enter the number of total value to be calculated, and then okay, macam ni you have to think how to enhance this coding by having array list. Okay, kalau yang awak perasan kat sini sekarang ni, this value is not in array, so now I want you to do it in array. Okay, dan dia ada how many based on how many ni lah calculated ni. Okay, boleh kelas? Kena fikirlah how to do it. Yang ni dah multidimensional. Okay, buat sampai sini je dulu exercise. Okay, boleh kelas?
Boleh Doktor.
Okay, these two exercise. The first one, you will develop array list to enter student name and student age for a certain number of students. Kemudian the second one, saya nak you enhance this exercise yang kita dah pernah buat sebelum ni. Okay, your output will be like this, sample output. Okay. Okay, boleh kelas?
Boleh Doktor. Kita try.
Try buat dulu. Lepas tu kita discuss hari Rabu ni lah. Next week yang Isnin tak ada kelas kan?
Kenapa Doktor? Oh, Wesak.
Wesak dengan apa satu lagi, Hul Pahang tak silap saya.
Oh.
Sebab dia fall on Sunday, so dia akan move to Monday lah.
Okay Doktor.
So kita akan cuba settlekan this chapter pada hari Rabu. Okay, exercise tu tak apa, next weeknya tak apa. Okay, okay kelas?
Doktor.
Ya.
Yang exercise tu hantar dalam apa tu? Padlet kan?
Hantar dalam Padlet. Okay, exercise hantar dalam Padlet. Okay kelas?
Okay Doktor.